Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our monthly Patreon hangout. I am here with a whole bunch of my Patreon patrons, and we're going to be here for the next hour. Yes,
And I
hour.
was waving even though like no one can see me because I had to start talking for people in order
Yes, you
to see
do.
me. And now
Yes,
I'm
you do.
waving and talking. Yeah.
And
It's
by
fair
the
to
way,
say that. Oh,
thank you
sorry.
for some random geek. Thank you for setting a good example and wearing a mask during the stream.
Even though we're all socially distanced anyway.
Well,
Yes.
the thing is, it's actually part of my costume. I'm a hunter from
Uh,
Bloodborne, and so yes, I didn't actually have this part of the costume. I didn't have actually the mask for like the hunter to wear, so now I have one, and now that's why I'm wearing the mask right now. Hopefully, people can hear me because that was a problem last time on Social Justice Alchemy when I wore the mask.
Geek, hearing
hear
you is rarely, if ever, an issue.
Yes.
I just wanted to
I
say,
I find it
the
hard to
way
believe
this-
that people couldn't hear you.
That's
the
actually
way-
a problem. I talk too fast. I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Hearing
the
and
way
understanding. Go ahead. Sorry, Nick.
the way these streams start, this one especially, is like, okay, everybody shut up, we have to start talking. It just reminded me of the way the Red Green show always ends, where the guy's like full under the bench. He's like, okay, everyone sit down and sit down. All right.
Hello, I must be going.
Fongo
Exactly.
Omni Fungus Moratori. Now sit down.
The reason and for people who are, I told everybody to shut the hell up before the stream started. That was just so we could have an orderly beginning. Now it's a free for all.
Oh, so now it's a free for all.
Now it's a
Okay.
free. Well, there's no as everybody who has ever participated in this or watched it knows. I mean, there's no moderating or controlling this hangout. Like people just it's hurting.
God only knows what going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We could try that. I've been to a DSSA queer and youth queer and feminist meeting where they did a thing where it's just like you have to say stack and in the chat, and then like the moderator or something like that will prioritize the people who haven't like spoke or people from like a marginalized kind of like a background or something like that to give them priority if we want to do that. But maybe this one would be magic.
Ideally,
Or on the other hand, you just mute everybody.
I'm the host. I'll just mute everybody. Ideal. I mean, there's only 10 of us in here right now. Like, exactly.
Well, this is Steve Side's channel, so yes.
There's only.
Looking at
about
some
that.
random geek right now, I've got the weirdest idea possible.
Okay.
Basically, I was listening to Steve's fanfic about Batman, and
Oh,
now
boy.
I'm thinking about the Batman costume, and I'm realizing that Batman is literally wearing everything except for the mask.
Yes, he's wearing the worst mask we can possibly
and I
have.
started thinking, I mean, Batman is not COVID immune, and in that case, he doesn't want to spread it. So, what would a Batman COVID-19 mask look like? It would probably be high tech, and it needs to fit into his suit. What would that look like?
You just extend the cowl.
Yeah, he'd do the full
Or
face
just
mask like Asbats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cover the
Not
face
good
with it.
at
Yeah, except
protecting
that
from the virus.
if he extends the cowl with the material that the cowl is made up of, you'll be writing his obit pretty dang quick.
That would affect oxygen levels in the blood. I think.
Just slightly, yes.
Going for him. Yeah, he's got all kinds of technology. There's a filter in there. He's got a rebreather.
There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Speaking of Batman, to Volvacat's point, your special forces logo looks like the Batman sign. Did you know that? Volvacat?
No, I had no idea. You mean the special forces of who? Of what?
Russia. They're like.
Oh, the Russian special
Spetsnaz?
forces. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not. Probably not special forces. Probably the air paratroopers logo. It has the airplanes. So
Oh, I was like looking behind Vovocat. I'm like, is there a logo?
Like Volvacat has special forces.
no,
Awesome.
whatever.
As just one thing about like Batman and masks and all that. As
Yes.
much as I love the Batman Beyond suit design, it's one of those weird ones where it's like the character isn't really wearing it. Like you can still see their mouth. So I'm wondering what the heck does like the rubbery part of the cowl just like wrap behind his lips so he talks like
Yeah.
It's the
Really
future. They figured out something.
You'd think it'd be really uncomfortable.
I got to say, COVID kind of makes Bane look pretty good, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, he's got especially like Dark Knight Rises, like movie Bane. He's got them. That's basically like a COVID mask that he's got on.
He needed that to breathe, exactly,
Yeah.
in The Dark Knight Rises.
Now I just wish I could understand-
painful.
Now I just wish I could understand what he's saying.
I mean,
No,
Superman
yeah,
would probably
that's
just
the
wear a
funniest-
regular mask. He doesn't
It's-
need it, but he needs to show people that it's required. It's like
Exactly.
his joke.
The
Setting
funniest
an
thing about that
example.
movie, though, is you'll have scenes that are just these two guys who sound utterly incomprehensible, like. It's just 'cause I don't
and yet
have to
Tom
admit it.
Hardy as actor is actually a good-looking guy, and he's very charismatic. Why does he always get the roles where he's get like a mask and put on him, or his face covered up, or stuff like that?
It's acting.
Exactly.
He read the script.
So
He
speaking
read the
of
script. He's like, I'll do it.
speaking of, how are we feeling about Jared Leto joining Zack Snyder verse and Justice League? I think it's terrible.
I'm
He's
still
the
not going to
worst.
see the movie, so it makes no difference
Yeah.
to me.
Well, Jared Leto was the Joker in Suicide Squad, and like that.
He was the worst Joker ever. So
Could I just say, I think that to me, the Zack Snyder Justice League now is going to be such a colossal, amazing, beautiful failure that I heard a rumor that Billy Zane was going to be filming things as the Phantom for a while. Like
Did he already do the Phantom?
Bring
or
back
something?
Shaq to play Steel. I mean, let's just go completely nuts with it.
I've also
it's going to be bad. It might as well
just because I am
be bad
bored.
and
And I am not
huge.
going to
Yeah.
pay a cent for that movie because, like, I'm from Russia. I am a pirate. I don't pay for it.
I just
And I'm
think it
Anakin.
feels so. Try to make a hip, trendy, sexy Joker. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the Joker, bitch."
Gangster
Like, no,
type.
that's, no, he's supposed to be creepy and weird.
I will totally go and pay to see that movie if he dies. I want the Joker to die.
I mean, it would be an amazing plot twist if
Incontrovertibly.
this Joker is just an imposter and some other Joker, just like the real Joker, comes in and basically slashes his head off. You know, that would be amazing.
No.
I'm waiting
The
for-
dead
I'm waiting
gone does not come back.
And his,
The
and
real
his
Joker
last
dead.
words need, and his
I'm
last
actually
words
waiting
need
for
to be,
Greenland,
"That's not
actually."
funny."
There was the fan theory that said that Jared Leto was actually Jason Todd. You know, in the continuity, that basically Jason Todd went crazy after Batman, gets rid of the Joker, and that Jared Leto isn't really the original Joker; he's Jason Todd, which is kind of a dumb theory, but I kind of liked it because I think that would make more sense. Like,
Honestly,
Jason Todd's Joker would be kind of like get a tattoo that says "damage" on his forehead.
if you need to invent outlandish fan theories like that, like it's probably not a good movie. I mean, if you have to be like, well, but if you imagine that this Joker is actually Jason, okay, but you're already off. You're already way past where you should be at this point.
Yeah, there's already so.
Okay,
there's already so
why
much-
not?
Steve.
Why not?
Right.
It's better than what you got.
Yeah.
Steve, let's be
Yeah.
real. How many times has the DC universe been retconned to begin with?
Oh God, it's like 5 times this year. I mean, seriously, it's not that bad, but like seriously, hasn't it been literally like 3 times in the last 10 years? I mean, it's absurd.
It's been about that, yeah.
And
It's
I
absurd.
also heard that Amber Heard he did some reshoots with Amber Heard, and she's gonna have a big role in Justice League. And so I'm just like, is it his like intent to just bring in the most toxic people possible for this movie? Like,
Well, it's like, can we
Heather.
can we admit at this point that the movie didn't exist? That like the people who were saying like release the Snyder cut were talking about an imaginary movie, and he's basically
Yes.
shooting a new movie at this point.
Give it
Like,
give it
Yes,
the
I agree.
Avatar
Yeah.
treatment.
Exactly.
It's like I wanted to like it, but I couldn't get over unobtainium, and it's like, wait, this is Ferngully and Pocahontas in space, and white savior narrative as well.
No.
They're-
The other movie that doesn't exist.
Oh,
That one.
oh, yeah.
I
They're
will
calling
say,
it-
they got a really good ride at Disney World out of it. So there's that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Years?
because
There's
they're
a
Yeah, go
Maggie
ahead.
Mae Fish made a great video. I mean, it's the second part of her Zack Snyder series. It's just called like "We're Already Dead."
Yeah.
And it just goes over how pessimistic just the lack of respect the guy has for human life. You know how little he like values people.
yeah.
Who, Snyder?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
He
about
does-
she focused mostly on his Dawn of the Dead remake, and that's a really good video.
Yeah,
Why
to be
is he
to
still
be
getting
fair,
greenlit? Why?
Okay, my friend Jamie J has a theory that like he is a nephew of some executive at like Warner Brothers, because like that's probably that's the only way, a good way to explain it. Otherwise, some people at Warner Brothers like his movies like Dawn of the Dead or like 300, and it's just like I don't know.
I honestly, I think the main reason is that 300 made a ton of money.
Yeah,
I despise. I hate that movie so much,
Snyder,
but 300 made so much money.
You want to know something really
did-
cool? That
I
show,
do
go ahead.
They do.
Guys,
they
do you hear me? I don't know if my mic is on. Probably
I can
not.
hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I have a question on Zack Snyder, and it's basically a question: if does like Zack Snyder have because I'm not following it, does he have like any actual bad character, bad person accusations in terms of him? Like some directors have like harassment accusations or something else, or is he just like a bad film director, but generally like
I don't know of
we
any.
don't know what kind of dude he is.
I don't know of any like accusations
I mean,
against him in terms
we
of his
would
personal
probably know
conduct.
about it if it was
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, we would have known that about it, and me too. But
somebody
yeah,
else,
that's
possibly.
He just seems to have a fetish for excessive violence.
Well,
and
and
he's
but
Iron Man.
that
He
he's not
likes
the
Iron
only
Man.
one, and that's kind of it's kind of just he has a right to do that. It's bad, but
Yeah.
it's not like
It's-
forbidden
it's-
or anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a right to do it with like he doesn't have a right to necessarily have other people fund his fetish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
all
the
of
thing,
the
yeah.
all
Yeah.
of the gross, terrible things that Zack Snyder does, he puts on film. He doesn't have behind the scenes gross things.
Right. Exactly.
They're all part of the narrative.
It's love for fascism and Iran ideology of objectivism that we have a problem with, and the terrible movies that he makes. Yes.
Instead of sexually
terrible
harassing
movies,
people,
I
he
get
made
it.
Sucker Punch.
Yes, exactly.
He
That's
channeled
the
it.
point.
He channeled it. You know,
To
good
be
for him.
fair, I think
That was
I
a
don't
weird
think I'm as hard
movie.
on Zack Snyder as some other people are.
But I mean,
think as
people
a film
funding Zack
director, he's a pretty
Snyder, I
decent
think
director.
it's actually the problem of people who fund them. It's they who decide if they should fund them or fund him or not. It's not about Zack Snyder, I think.
Okay,
Yes,
Random
I mean,
Geek,
he
there's
has
your
problems.
cue. There's your cue. Well, the
Oh, that's right.
capitalism.
Don't get him
No,
started, Dana.
It's or how another way to think of it, hierarchical structure, where the person at the top that has all of the power to decide, instead of like a more flat and horizontal cooperative structure at a movie studio or other kind of production companies, as it were, so that if the majority of people say no, it's not going to be this, and also they would do so by consensus, not just like more votes and whoever gets the most votes win. That's the word. Yes. Thank you for that prime, Dana.
I was just gonna say, if anybody here wants to see basically 300 but more bearable, just watch the Samurai Jack episode where he meets the Spartans.
Yeah.
Like he just goes up to this cliff because he knows there's a battle in distance, and you see the Spartans, but they're slightly more futuristic. Like their spear tips launch as missiles and stuff. And he just sees like they're starting to be backed into a corner. He's like, oh, I better help these guys. So they basically accidentally joined forces. Like, hey, you fight good. Yeah, you fight good. And just read the episode. It just becomes a fun little adventure story, basically. If you want to see 300,
I
but
love
without
Samurai
all,
Jack.
so if you want to see 300, but without all the toxic baggage and just the grim and bleakness, but still has the cool camera angles and you know the all the stretching and the screens and the panning and stuff, you know. Just watch
I caught Samurai Jack when it first came out on Cartoon Channel. I can't even think how many years ago. And I always liked it. It always seemed to have something of an understated nature to it that I just thought was engaging. It sort of reminded me of as though if you brought Kung Fu, the old television series with David Carradine,
yeah,
to a cartoon format that was very much what I would have expected. And I don't think I ever saw but one season of the darn thing. I don't know how many seasons there actually was of it.
5.
Yeah, 5.
They're
wow, that's
like,
a good run.
70% of that show, if not more, is just visual storytelling. I think they should have entire college classes where they just sit the students down and have them watch Samurai Jack. Like that's how you do visual storytelling.
I love Gennady Tartakovsky. Samurai Jack, the Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory. Those are like my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Speaking of 300, I'm
yeah.
just going to link into the late season episode of like 300 that Steve Shives did with like Jason Harding, and to know how Steve Shives feels about like the that movie. But this is a good question from the live chat. What is a good Zack Snyder movie?
I actually agree with what you say there in the live chat, Geek. I think the only Zack Snyder movie I've ever seen that I have genuinely liked, like all the way through, without having too many quibbles, is his Watchmen movie. I really like his Watchmen movie.
So how many quibbles is too many?
It's enough to that one doesn't enjoy it. Could be just one quibble that is like I can't enjoy this because of this one thing, or could be many different things.
Yeah,
But
I would just say, as a big fan of the original comic, I saw Zack Snyder's Watchmen, and I'm talking about the theatrical cut because I also saw the extended cut. The extended cut is terrible. The extended cut is unwatchable for me. But the theatrical cut, which is like an hour shorter, so that's a point in its favor. It's still I think too graphically violent because Zack Snyder just has this hard on for like super graphic violence. And I mean, even in a story as dark as Watchmen, there's no need to show like compound fractures and like people getting their arm punched through and broken. And like there's just really graphic stuff that just is gratuitous. But overall, I mean, when it was over, I thought, damn, that was a good movie. Like I was satisfied as someone who likes movies and as satisfied as a fan of the comic. I thought he did a really excellent job of adapting it. So that's what I would say. Because the other Zack Snyder movies I've seen, other than like visual stuff and the fact that he does have a good eye as a director.
In terms of an excellent cinematographer.
Yeah. In terms of storytelling, he's just garbage. He's just garbage.
Yes. Well, let's make a cinematographer out of him then and take him.
Movies, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting sometimes, but it doesn't work any other way. Sorry. So
I'll live.
That's fair.
Basically, about bad movies, it's like that. I personally realize that Man of Steel is a bad movie. I think nobody would argue with that.
Well, some people would.
There are people who definitely would argue with that.
I just kind of watched it in that kind of moment of my life that it kind of became special for me. Don't judge me on that. It's just how my life turned out. It was not interconnected. It's just that I was watching it in that very moment of my life, and now it's like forever there for me in like those memories, and so I don't know. Is it problematic that I have those things for some really bad pieces of, if you can call it, art or anything?
Yeah,
Can I
Vladimir, we all have bumps in the road.
Yeah.
I mean, ain't none of us Simon Pure to begin with. So I mean, the point is, is less where you've been than where you are now.
Yeah. Michael, you were going to say something?
Yeah, this is if people have opinions on Zack Snyder, this could alter them or confirm them.
I mean, the movie is still special for me. I still like rewatching it sometimes.
Let Michael talk.
Zack Snyder is apparently going to be directing an adaptation of The Fountainhead.
I knew about
that. Oh yeah, that's been in the works for years.
He loves Ayn Rand. He loves Ayn Rand. Steve, you and Jason Harding noticed that when you reviewed Batman v Superman for late Sydney.
Yeah,
he was a big hard on Ayn Rand that both Batman and Superman became Ayn Rand superheroes or Ayn Rand heroes.
And Fountainhead has been a dream project of his for years.
Yes,
I guess they announced it a while ago. I just never seen it. That's kind of.
But that's the kind of So
well, if anybody sees it, let me know how it is, because I am not. I have no plans to watch that.
Can somebody explain the whole Iran ideology thing? I don't really know much about that.
So the idea is that the
objectivism.
It's all about the individual. When people work together, that's bad.
Yes, altruism is bad in Ayn Rand's viewpoint.
And cooperation is bad. It is a good thing to put that. It's the whole 80s motif of greed is good.
Yes.
Putting yourself first is the ideal.
It's conservatism is as well. Yeah. In that way.
Not quite, because conservatism is also very paternalistic, and it's concerned with the other and in regulating the other. And Rand does push back against that. So it's more like libertarian style conservatism.
Oh, well, yeah, I do agree. The libertarian style.
Anytime,
exactly.
As a further piece
conservatism
of
light.
The Fountainhead, in the original adaptation, which was in 1949, starred Gary Cooper, who then went on to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee and turn in all of his Hollywood friends as being communists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not what Sergeant York would do. Actually, it probably is. Now that I think about
Yeah.
it. He was a good shot, but I don't know if he was necessarily that great of a guy.
I mean, it's proven by now that altruism and cooperation is basically evolutionary. We are basically wired to do that.
Yeah.
Yes,
The
yes,
statement-
that's why we
statement
have
being
civilization.
selfish, actually, it's
Yeah,
both.
that's why we have
It's-
mirror neurons.
But that,
Yeah,
that's,
yes.
but that's why, like, we have this.
Because
Ayn Rand
evolution is
kind
not about the survival of the individual, it is about the survival of the genes.
The
and the
species.
genes actually survive better when people help each other, you know?
Okay, Richard
I was
Dawkins.
I was just gonna say, like, all the rhetoric that we see, from Ayn
I mean,
Rand
what's
and
wrong
such,
with Richard Dawkins?
Well, as a scientist, there's nothing wrong with him.
As a scientist. Next we're saying.
Okay, I was just trying to say. Okay, so just all the rhetoric that we see from the right, how the way people are tackling COVID right now is that this idea that you shouldn't care about other people, especially if you don't know them. Just everybody only think about themselves and fuck everybody else.
But then,
no wonder that comes from.
Why
the
are they
top.
so religious then? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's the way that comes from the top down is because the wealthy, they're trying to stamp out this most natural of human behaviors, which is our drive to cooperate and work together.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling us to go against our own programming.
Guys, I think my evacuation just arrived, so I'm going to be pulling my car out. Goodbye, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Take good care,
Thanks for
Vladimir.
stopping by.
The point is, we've been told for decades, for generations now, to behave in this really unnatural way. To only look out to not band together. So why it was such a radical statement, the slogan for the Bernie campaign, fight for somebody you don't know. Because so many Americans just don't know how to do that. Like, wait, what? Why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah,
Anyway.
so it's like, but like as has already stated, that like Vladimir said that the mutual aid is a factor of evolution, which not only did Peter Kropotkin said, but he also wrote a whole book about it. But Charles Darwin also recognized that in observing animals, that like social animals, when they cooperate, they did better out in the wild, as it were. So this idea of like the humans are at their best when they compete against each other is just like
Yeah, but at the same time, the idea of fight for somebody that you don't know is a little on the condescending side, because if you don't know them, you don't necessarily, I mean, there are different levels of knowing people, but if you don't know somebody, then you don't necessarily know what their preferences are, what they want for their own life. You're making an assumption.
But
so,
if you're
and the whole idea of mirror neurons is, I mean, there is a connection, there's an interactivity there. There are beings that have met each other.
Yeah.
So,
How about this?
Right.
How about
But
this
there-
instead? Fight for somebody because they need the help.
Well, I say that
And then let Eric talk.
I'm only as free as the lowest person in society. So Eric, you go next.
So what I was going to say is that, yes, if you're a complete stranger, sure, there can be, why would you have any sort of feelings for them? But we're talking about a tribe, and that's how we evolved as a tribe. And that switch over from being hunter-gatherers to being agricultural society absolutely 100% depends upon socialistic ideas that we're all working together to.
I disagree strongly with that, but that's okay. Keep going.
We can take that offline if you want. But I mean, that's the very nature of farming and agriculture, is that we're working together. There's a lot of bad things that happen. Yes, and it also created a lot of bad things, like a hierarchy and male-dominated society. Yes, but the whole idea of creating a civilization, creating a group, that's how we got here, right?
You see, what I was getting at is, you look at other countries, even other Western countries, where they're not having as hard a time with COVID because they don't have this weird perversion of freedom, of individualistic liberties. They know to take care of the rest of society. It's like they wear a mask even if they don't know the other people who might be affected. They understand there's an implicit trust there. It's like they signed a social contract to take care of the rest of the country with the implicit trust that those people will also take care of them. And it just becomes like this cycle, and we in America don't have that. People are
We also have a narcissistic idiot child in the front office, which has not helped matters because we haven't been able to coordinate things at the federal level.
Well,
Donnie simply won't have that.
No.
Donald Trump is just a symptom. I mean, if you look at Donald Trump's policies, his policies do not differ significantly from the Republican Party in any way. So, yeah, Donald Trump is personally not much of a fan of his, but he's not the cause of any of this. He's benefiting from the fact that Americans don't trust each other. I mean, like my wife used to do a lot of organizing, and one of the people that she worked with was organizing workers at a meatpacking plant. And you had your sort of white American workers, you had immigrant Mexican workers and immigrant African workers, and they all hated each other. And they all fought because nobody trusted each other and everybody thought everybody else was trying to steal their wages, when in actuality it was the people at the top that were trying to steal their wages. And that's the problem, I think, writ large in the whole country, is the fact that everybody doesn't trust each other. Everybody thinks that everybody else is trying to screw them over, and they're largely right about that. Everybody
because it perpetuates that mistrust. That means that you're only looking out for yourself, and you are going to screw the other guy over because you think they're going to try to screw you over.
Which is a reasonable thing to think in this country.
It perpetuates that cycle.
Isaiah, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, especially like during the summer here in Florida and all that stuff, when everyone was like, the masks like impede my freedom, and I'm like, well, I don't feel like I'm free anyway. I mean, I can't work the job that I want. I don't have a car, so I can't travel too far. I still wear them. You know, I like. What are they talking about that they don't feel free when they're wearing a mask? Why do some, and I'm saying white because that's who say this, why do some white people feel that way?
Because they're being childish.
Well, and it also comes to you mentioned about feeling free, and that's gonna be something different for different people. So, you know, when you say that you don't feel free, like you gave examples because you can't work the job that you want to do. That you don't have a car, so you don't have the freedom to travel that you might otherwise. So, looking at what we mean when we use those sorts of abstract terms, following up with specific examples. This is English teacher lingo here. That's why that's so important. And I also do stress that to my students. Those specific examples to support your ideas. It really is. It helps people understand you, and that's what matters.
Yeah, and it's like, I have autism and stuff like that, but like people say they don't feel free when wearing a mask. I wear a mask. I can still walk around and do stuff.
Well, a lot of that, I think, has to do with these people wanting to act on their own impulses, refusing to, yield to the common good because they're feeling put upon because they're being told, look, you've got to wear a mask. And there's that also the undertone there of you're not wearing a mask to protect yourself so much as you're wearing a mask to protect others.
And some people, like with Ayn Rand's philosophy of altruism being like evil, which a lot of libertarians they kind of follow that, and some right wingers as well. It's like, oh, I want to wear a mask to like protect others. Screw that! I'm my individual. I'm a rough, rugged individual. But as we mentioned before on the previous Patreon hangouts when this topic came out, I think politicians are also using the mask issue as like this is against freedom as well as a wedge issue, kind of like divide the populace. With many other issues that they used before, I think abortion is still like a wedge issue they use to divide the populace as well.
Well, it's also interesting when so like they don't like to have a mask order, but when a black guy gets shot by the cops, it's like they should just follow the law. So it's always always this.
Welcome to the wonderful world of a double standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, and the big part of that is just feeling like that people in authority up to this point have always asked them to do things. Their freedom is being taken away because they're not getting the input this time like they're always given, unlike in previous times where
they're not being as privileged as they used to be.
Right. Exactly.
You said something there that I think is kind of interesting. And I remember from when I was younger, every so often the government, the president would ask you to do things, would ask for some sacrifices from the American people. And I remember it was such a shock after 9/11 when, we're attacked, terrorist attack, all this stuff. And what did George W. Bush say? He said, go shopping. He didn't ask the American people to
Yeah.
sacrifice. He didn't ask for anything. And I think the American people have come to believe that the government is just something that kind of sits out there and, you know, does its thing and they do their thing. And they don't realize that it's all like, we're the government. You know, nobody else coming in to save us or to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
We're the only ones that can do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to sacrifice. You know, sometimes you have to just stay home and sometimes you have to wear a mask. And that's just the way it is. And you're just doing that for your fellow human. But again, I think the message from honestly both parties, but definitely much more from the Republican Party, is just like, no, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. You don't have to do anything. Everything's fine.
That's interesting you say that because, you know, poor people are told they have to save and save and save. You can't buy anything frivolous, but rich people buy what the fuck you want. It's your money,
Yeah.
but poor people can't spend money to get stuff they want.
They earned it.
Somebody else earned it and they paid it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But don't you dare buy any steak or lobster with that EBT card because we're standing behind you in line at the grocery store watching what you buy.
Because of course they couldn't have saved up for that.
Right, exactly. Don't you? Poor people aren't allowed to have nice things. They're not allowed to treat yourselves or to eat good food or whatever. It's yeah. You know what Michael was saying.
Or make their own choices.
Or make their own choices. Exactly.
That's a big one.
What Michael was saying about, I mean, that's a good point about post 9/11. You know, George W. Bush asked for no serious sacrifices, and then also the idea that this is something that has bothered me for a very long time, and I've mentioned it in videos going back years and years. The mostly conservative notion that the government is like an alien occupier. You know, that the government is, and Ronald Reagan made this a central part of his message.
Yeah.
You know, he famously said, "Government is not the solution. Government is the problem." And he was very broad when he said that. He didn't say the government as it works now, or the government as it is constituted, or the government the way we've been using it lately. He said, "Government is the problem," and that became a core tenet of American conservatism to the point where the government is seen as an enemy and as an alien, and it shouldn't be. It should be us. Exactly. Yeah. It should be us.
What are the first three words of the Constitution?
Exactly.
We the people.
Exactly.
And a lot of the consciousness of that has been lost to the fact that a lot of the consciousness of that has been lost to the fact that who is really teaching civics anymore? I mean, my high school education is 50 years ago, and I remember it vividly. But again, that's half a century ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So
by which we mean we just have white men who own land.
Okay, but it's okay. But that okay. I'm sorry. That really it gets on my nerves when you say that because I mean. Yes, when they wrote the Constitution, that's what they meant, and we are clearly not as far as we need to be in terms of correcting that because there are still barriers for people to participate, you know, and like I'm 100% on board with we have never lived up to our founding ideals. Like I don't think we ever truly have, but I don't see the point of saying of every time somebody talks about the Constitution in a positive light or using it as an example of, oh, if we actually applied this, you know, according to our principles, we'd be doing a lot better than we are, to automatically go back and say, you know, oh, and you know, like 250 years ago it was just cishet white men. Like, yes, of course it was. And it was messed up and it shouldn't have been that way. And to a certain degree, we have corrected that. And we still have a lot more correction to go, but it just feels like, you know,
we're still a work in progress.
Yeah, we're still a work in progress, but there has been some progress, you know.
And I'll tell you what, as it comes to the whole voting issue is concerned, I just heard this wonderful report literally yesterday where they're talking about early voting in Cleveland.
Yeah.
They had a line from the elections office, and it's not in downtown Cleveland, but it's out in the way a little bit, all the way out to I-90. That's
Jesus.
over a mile.
Wow.
Sounds like they need some more early voting locations.
Well, the point being, and I'm sure you guys have all heard reports from various places that so far the early voting has basically blown away actual voting tallies for previous elections.
Which is
I'll tell you
super
what, we're
encouraging.
going to be looking at
right
a
now
total.
sitting at 60 million.
We're going to be looking at total voter participation in 2020, like I think nothing we've seen at least in the last 20 to 30 years.
You had mentioned the Constitution, Steve. I just wanted to mention one thing, and this is something that I've sort of been coming to terms with lately, is the idea, the problem with the Constitution is the Constitution. I mean, the idea of white men being the only voters is obviously a problem, and the whole 3/5 thing. But there's so many other things that are problematic about the Constitution and make our country fundamentally undemocratic. I mean, the idea that Wyoming with 600,000 people has the same representation in the Senate as California with 40 million people is just fundamentally an undemocratic system.
I agree.
I know that's what Bill Maher likes to say.
That's also,
I mean, get rid of all the racist stuff.
Yeah,
if you want
there should only be one Dakota.
But the thing is, like I used to thought the same way about the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Founding Fathers, and I thought all about that. But my position, my feelings on them has changed the more I learn about them. And granted, maybe I should do my own research, just going off what David Raper says. But yet I reevaluate my positions on things when I hear some interesting tidbits, like how nowhere in the Declaration of Independence or nowhere in the Constitution does the word say America is a democracy, and that kind of gets me thinking, especially how I started thinking about who are the founding fathers as they were. They were really just like the separate class, the mercantile class at the time, the elites of their time, as it were, and maybe they did have good intentions, as it were, and they did good things. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm sorry, I kind of focus on some of the things that they did that were, wow, when you think about it. I mean, the British government had treaties with a lot of the indigenous tribes and east of the Appalachians, as it were, and I don't know, maybe there's no smoking gun quote of them saying, yes, let's be independent from Britain so that we can go expand westward. Maybe they did want to expand into the Ohio Valley, since they did fought a war there. And so I kind of that was kind of tidbits and facts, kind of shed a light on the things. And what happens when I presented with new information? I changed my opinion.
Well, we're a democracy in name, mostly to export to other less democratic nations. It's
freedom.
It's kind of okay, it's the 90s. America beats the commies, and we're a democracy because
I'm still here
because we did that. So we're only a democracy in name and in pop culture. Because our pop culture communicates democracy, not really the democracy itself.
And
Look,
this whole, going back to what you were saying, some random geek, about the colonial days. That's where we get this very strong libertarian, don't tread on me kind of attitude that's been baked into our American society. Is we didn't want the British government treading on us, right? So. Or I say us, but them, right? But that's where and it's stuck with us. This attitude of
a lot of that came out of the whole no taxation without representation.
Exactly.
I mean, we had some very valid grievances. Part of the problem, though,
taxes, and that still hasn't changed.
Part of the problem, though, is that the Constitution, as it was originally framed for the 13 colonies, was very functional, and things like the sizing of the states as the United States expanded somewhat kept up with that primary concept. If you take a look as you go west, though, what happens to the size of the states versus the size of the population?
Right.
It doesn't hold up. No. And the problem is there was very little consciousness of that disparity between the original 13 colonies and what was happening as the country grew. And the problem is the Constitution has not, in terms of how it's proportioning its power to an individual state, has not evolved with the growth of the United States.
Now,
from that point onward.
I will definitely agree with that. I mean, I will say, just to sort of link up with some of what Some Random Geek was saying earlier, I definitely think that, what Eric said a minute ago too. I mean, as a culture, as a country, I think we've had a chip on our shoulder about a lot of this stuff since the very beginning. And a lot of it goes back to the revolution and how proud we are of ourselves that we threw off the chains of the British Empire, and, you know, and nobody's going to boss us around because we're Americans. And, you know, we beat the biggest empire in the world to win our independence, and, you know, nobody's going to boss us around. But I mean,
the French did most of the work.
Yeah, the French helped us out. The French helped us out a little bit, you know.
So did the Atlantic. I mean, geography really played a part in this. It's like they're all the way over there, guys.
I'm like,
thanks, Ocean.
Thanks, Julie.
But I do think that we tend to treat our founding documents way too much like Holy Scripture.
Yeah.
And I do think even today, where I think more people are able to have a more nuanced view of them, I do think we still glorify the founding fathers way too much. But at the same time, like when you say, you know, like when you say the Constitution never says America is a democracy, to me, I just don't.
What?
That you're not saying anything. Like the system it sets up is a democratic system. Now it's not. It's imperfect, and especially if you go by the way it was when the document was ratified. Yes, of course it was. There were all kinds of undemocratic things about it in terms of the people who didn't have rights, the people who weren't allowed to vote, the advantages that were conferred to people based on their economic status, and like there was a lot of undemocratic stuff in there, and there still is. And there's a lot of undemocratic stuff about our society and the way our government functions, practically speaking, today that we really should have been trying to fix all these decades, and we've kind of let that slide.
But there has been progress, and
there has been progress.
Have been trying to fix these things,
and it is fundamentally a democratic system,
right? And I you know, a tree doesn't know it's a tree, but it's still a tree.
Right.
Yes. I had something to bring up. So there probably isn't enough time to touch on both things. I wanted to say something about QAnon and part of why that's spread so much.
Do it. Open that can of worms, man.
Oh shit.
I can save it. The other thing I wanted to say was I hate dynasties, and I hate, like, when someone's president, I don't want their kid to be president like a decade later, because like there's 300 million people in this country. We can find someone else. We don't need to set up these dynasties and then I see like these crazy Trump supporters who say, oh, they want his kids to become president next.
Yeah.
And some will even set up these charts where they just imagine, you know, like his daughter being president, and then his, you know, little Baron being president, term after term after term, just this one family making America great forever. And just thinking, wasn't the whole conceit of America, the whole point of it, to get away from things like kings and queens and monarchies, and they want to go back to that? Like, I hate to say this, but they hate America. If these people want one family to be in charge of everything for generations, they never believed in America, the whole idea of it. They just need to stop pretending, just own it.
Yeah. What they want more than anything else is to, as much as possible, maintain a status quo and arrest change insofar as it is possible, which is a fool's errand.
Now, the other thing I want to say, which has to do with QAnon,
please.
Part of the reason that's exploded so much and so quickly this year is because when people are isolated, which, you know, had to happen, the quarantine had to happen, but those early months in the year, when people are all alone and they're not frequently exposed to coworkers or family, just people outside their echo chamber, they are much more likely to believe conspiracy theories. They're more susceptible to that influence. So when people had to quarantine, a bunch of them started looking at this QAnon stuff that they might not have been as likely to believe before. And the thing is, they try to hook normal people in, because, of course, everybody wants to stop pedophiles. It's like, who doesn't? So they say, oh, well, come a little further. Come over here. By the way, did you know that they're drinking brain juice and they're all satanic and they're all Democrats?
Exactly.
And that's how they get you.
They're all lizard people.
Yeah.
This is
Finish your point, Nick. Done. So look, the main reason is because they are frustrated with Trump, because he promised he was going to do all these things. Any of it. He hasn't successfully crushed all the groups of people that they hate or whatever. And they need some kind of explanation for it. They can't just accept that maybe he's just incompetent or that he lied to them, that he's a con man. So they got to tell themselves, well, that's because he's not really in charge. It's the deep state. Now it all makes sense. It's this cabal. And if only they weren't getting in his way, he would have done everything by now.
Well, the thing about QAnon is that it all started back in the 80s with John Walsh and how the media like perpetuated the deaths of all these suburban white kids, and so QAnon still kind of rings true in that suburban like 80s 90s Stepford Wives bubble of people are coming to get your kids, so you got to be extra vigilant and extra like all that stuff. So I think that's what QAnon is tapping into. It's
but the
that.
brain juice element of it, let's just be real.
Yeah,
It's the blood libel. It's just a sadly repackaged, the latest version of that anti-Semitic trope.
Yeah, it always comes back to anti-Semitism eventually.
I was I was a soldier when I was younger and had less of a beard. And I was in Iraq. And the one thing that you found in Iraq a lot, especially at the height, and probably still today, but especially at the height of when things were bad, our local division paper would put out this word on the street in Baghdad. And it would just be all these crazy things you hear, and you didn't understand why people are believing these things. But now I sort of understand the reason people believe those things is because there wasn't one news source that was reliable to everybody. Everybody was getting their information from different sources, and all the sources had different, standards for what they would do to report things. And I think that's what you're seeing in the country now is there isn't one news source that everybody trusts. Everybody has different news sources. Everybody creates their own little bubble of reality, and they can just live there, and they never have to be challenged, and they can do that. And I think that's the problem. Nobody's challenged on believing fundamentally untrue things.
Yeah, well, it actually goes beyond that. I've probably mentioned this before, but one of the reasons why my daughter got out of news producing was, and I imagine this was a result of feedback she was getting from reviewers, was the fact that people were far less interested in getting the news than they were in getting their biases reinforced. And that's deadly because one way or the other, I mean, to a certain degree, you have to listen to your viewers, but to a certain degree, it's like that statement that Walter Robinson made in the movie Spotlight. I think we work at our best when we stand alone. It sounds, it doesn't sound quite right, but when you think about what a newspaper has to be in terms of representing the news, representing what is actually reported and having some integrity, you got to stand alone.
And the other thing with that, especially when it comes to news and reporting, and we saw this with climate change, they would give equal time to climate scientists and to climate change deniers. And you can't do that. Right, you can't do that. Like it's not balanced, right?
Well, but
people thought that it was. Oh, well, it's a debate. It's not a debate.
Yeah, there's that. I keep coming back to this marvelous quote. You probably know it from Edward R. Murrow. When he says there is not on every topic two equal and valid sides to a story, and he was absolutely right. And it may have been him versus McCarthy back then, and it's now us versus Trump. But the blunt end of the stick is, somebody's got a point and somebody doesn't, and that needs to be acknowledged.
I got it from Laugh-In, where it says, "Ooh, they were talking about the Pentagon. They said there's 5 sides to every story there."
It reminds me. There was this recent clip.
I see what you did there.
There was this recent clip of one reporter who had this Trump aide, whatever, and he was perpetuating these lies about voter fraud, and she just immediately shut him down. And I'm thinking, this is the kind of energy they should have had from day one. They should always talk to Trump and his cronies this way. But the news, they've confused being objective with being neutral. They have to act like both sides have a point. It's like some Republican says, "Oh, this person secretly has 2 heads." It's like they think, "Oh, well, gee, he said, she said. I can't tell who's correct. I guess it's 50-50."
Yeah, well, one of the guys I watch online always says that if the straight political media reported on sports, they would say, "Well, the Packers played the Bears last night. The Packers say they won, but the Bears say they won." So,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, look at what happened with Leslie Stahl.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
I mean, Leslie, I have been watching her practically since she came on with 60 Minutes. She has got to be one of the most polite and yet one of the most incisive reporters I've seen since Mike Wallace. And it's one of the reasons why I admire the hell out of her. And it's one of the reasons why I will guarantee you that Donald Trump is scared shitless of her, because she will not pull punches. It's that simple.
Well, and just think,
so
look at the questions that she was asking him that he supposedly thought were so unfair. Like, she was just asking basic. She was just asking basic follow-ups, like, how are you going to protect pre-existing conditions?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he keeps saying, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of Obamacare, but we're going to protect pre-existing conditions. Okay, well, how? Like, what's your policy? What are you going to do? Well, they're going to be protected, but how?
But
what
how?
are you going to do? They're going to be protected. People like,
Move me out of the dirt. I am back.
hey,
Yo, lad.
He has spent all these years just complaining about how people are so unfair to him. They've been so bad to him. And I was waiting that whole last debate for Biden to just come and say, are you ever going to stop crying?
yeah.
It would have been so cathartic if he said that, because we're all thinking it.
But that's not Biden. Biden's
No.
not that guy.
Yeah.
No.
I wish he was.
Yeah.
Um,
One other point I'd like to make about that debate, too, is the fact, take a look at how often Trump looks into the camera, which was almost never, versus how often Biden looks straight into the camera and talk to the American people.
Because he relates to us. He has, at least
The
some
word is
empathy.
empathy.
Yeah, he has some empathy. Exactly.
He has some awareness of what plays well on screen.
There's that
too.
Necessarily, but the other thing, I mean, Lauren, you were talking about, the journalist's responsibility to represent the facts. And I think you have to be really careful about that, because you still have to make choices. You have to decide what the lead's going to be. You have to decide what information you're going to include, because God knows.
Oh, yeah. Hey, believe me, I mean, one thing I got an earful of from my daughter.
Beyond that, you also have to look at when people who have strong beliefs about something are confronted with direct evidence that contradicts those beliefs, it doesn't actually help the case at all. It actually makes them more defensive about those beliefs.
Yeah. Well,
so you have to, as a journalist, you have to go about it very carefully.
That's Psych 101.
Like you were talking
and
about
there's also the matter of what fits in the A block, the B block, the C block, and the D block.
It's what
especially when you're stuck with a lousy half hour of news.
But there's also like manufacturing consent, as Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman explored as well in their book, which the documentary you can watch and on LinkedIn before, but there's also a shorter video to help explain that concept. But if I can quickly change the topic, and since I don't know when we're about to end, but in about the next 10 minutes,
if you want to go ahead and talk about your charity stream, you can.
Okay, yes, this weekend, a holiday weekend, starting on Friday, I'm in a group of a bunch of different Twitch streamers that are going to be streaming for the Transgender Law Center. We're doing a charity stream. It's going to start on Tavi the Wolf's Twitch channel, which I'm going to link into the live chat right now. We're just going to be raising money, doing our own thing. We are going to also be rating into each other. So each per streamer is going to do 2 hours, 3 hours, however long, and we're going to rate into the next streamer, and we're all going to be raising money for the Transgender Law Center, which I'm going to be put into the live chat right now. It's a cool organization. Look up the story about Asha Whitaker, because that was a trans boy in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that had to wear a wristband to go into the boys' bathroom. He's a transgender boy, and that was a wristband to incentivize. He's a trans boy going to the male's bathroom, and so forth. But that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be streaming on Saturday early morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and do a stream on Sunday as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of Twitch streamers doing it. Tavi the Wolf is Groundhog, Sarah Bread, Momo G, Jane Henry, Lin Wu, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Hank Cheese, and yeah. So thank you for letting me pitch that.
Of course. And just for anybody watching, I'll add the link to the description of the video after the stream is over. But for anybody who's curious, it's twitch.tv/Tavi_the_Wolfess.
Follow me on Twitter. I will also tweet it out when it's happening, because it's going to happen on different Twitch streamers channels as well.
Yeah.
Hey guys, is this the last hangout before your election is done?
Yes.
Yes. Thank God. Thank God.
I just want the thing to be over.
Me too. Oh,
So the
me
next
too,
one
man.
will
I
either be
voted.
very happy
I
or
just
very
want to
sad.
wish you like good
Look,
luck and Godspeed and
Thank
everything,
you both.
every
please,
best wishes.
thank you.
Like,
Thank
look at me.
you.
I am literally a guy from Russia, and I am literally endorsing Biden right now.
Well,
Hey, no, you can't.
Spasiba.
Don't do. You're just making things worse.
I was gonna say,
I mean, hey, Bolivia had a great election as well, where the Massa Party, the Socialist Party, the party of Evo Melendez, won their election at a landslide by 20
Yeah.
points. And after the military coup that it had last year, it's great news that like Mas won handily. New Zealand, also the Labour Party, New Zealand,
Oh, I know.
they won massively
Yeah.
in their election as well. Got like 64 out of the 120 seats in the New Zealand Parliament.
I'm-
So yeah.
I'm just so worried that somehow there's going to be some shenanigans and we're still stuck with this asshole.
Yeah.
There
as
will be
president.
shenanigans regardless.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
was
think
gonna
we
say
can
that
avoid that. Certainly, especially as heavily as Donnie has talked about, not acknowledging a peaceful transition of power.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I fully expect the interregnum here to be just that, an interregnum.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's,
I mean, fortunately, the military has, some of the generals have come out and said if he loses the election and refuses to go, we will escort him out. So I
Yeah, that's
appreciated
good.
that.
oh yeah.
That's nice.
Um,
Yeah.
But I
always
just
remember our biggest ally is the fact that Donald Trump is a giant coward.
Yes,
That's a good
true.
point.
He will leave if Biden wins, he said once time, but he says a lot of things, true.
You know, my favorite part is
Boy,
when I think
does he ever. He says so many things.
So many words.
I think
have
it
a
was
huge vocabulary. Sorry.
it was at one of his I think it was one of his recent rallies where he said that if he loses, he's not going to attend Biden's inauguration. And like,
Right,
oh,
that's
okay.
Oh
Like,
no!
But
oh
he-
God,
he-
no, please don't say that.
he's the least racist person in the room.
In the room.
Right.
Yeah,
Richard,
and I have a
just say you're not racist, right?
Yeah.
Just say
He can't just be not racist.
and I have a nice theme
Like
park in
every
Florida
other
I'd
white
like to
person
sell you.
does.
Yeah.
He said that with a black woman in front of him.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's just like how people said, like Sark on a con, I'm such a nice guy. You never met me, but I'm a nice guy. That's what Trump did with saying, I'm the least racist person that there is.
Yeah, and he knows more about ISIS than the generals.
Yeah, yeah.
Isaiah, what did you want to say?
So since we're about to since I'm about to leave the hangout and it's about
Yeah.
to be over, I do want to share a song, or at least a snippet of a song.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so wake me up when democracy ends. I hope America had the time of its life.
Okay, so
Oh.
interesting
Two
tidbit.
songs.
Interesting tidbit, actually. Yeah, they're
medley.
two different songs that mess with it, but for like
Put
when
them
September.
together so well.
It's a
Yeah,
medley.
they kind of work. Yes,
It's beautiful.
exactly.
I actually tried out for American Idol, but go ahead.
One interesting
Green Day
tidbit.
songs are vastly different from each other.
Yeah, one of the things tidbits I learned about when September ends is actually the lead singer. I forgot his name. His
Joel.
father,
Billy Joe. Not Billy Joel.
Billy Joe.
One letter.
I'll find one letter. His father died when he was 8 years old,
Yeah.
and so the funeral happened at the beginning of September. And
Yeah.
for an 8-year-old child losing their father, so once they got home, he ran up into his room and closed behind the door. And when his mother knocked on the door and asked, "Is everything all right?" he said, "Wake me up when September ends."
Interesting.
I never heard
Yeah.
that story before. That's a good story.
Yeah, but
Oh.
I mean, people will message him on Twitter, during September and say, "Hey, we're thinking of you," and he's just like, "I wish I had never written that song."
Yeah. Leave me
Now he's
alone.
getting all these reminders of this really painful experience from
Yeah.
Yeah.
But oh gosh,
And-
yeah,
and-
Oregon.
And by the way, can I just say, if Billy Joel did decide to do an album of Green Day covers, I would totally be there for that.
Yes.
Well,
They
Absolutely.
would definitely play it on the boys.
I can't.
well, actually,
I can't imagine what that would sound like, but I would totally listen to that.
on YouTube.
There would be lots of piano.
Well, I would assume.
Well, no kidding. I mean, it's only his primary instrument.
Sing us a song. You're the American idiot.
Say it. You were about to say.
I was saying on YouTube. I was
Okay,
saying,
guys, I'll be leaving right now as well because I need
Okay.
to go home. It's like still 40 minutes of ride towards home. I'm still sitting here like not in the dirt already, but still sitting here. So the last thing I'm going to say today is basically go vote the hell out of it for all the people that don't have this privilege in the world.
Thank you.
We're done, Vlad, and get home safe, all right?
You lucky bastards, go have your democracy and go vote. So, yeah.
I second that.
With your democracy.
Thank you for basically making my, weird adventure more fun and more exciting. See you, everyone, and we didn't start the fire, you know. See you.
It was since the world's been turning, but Isaiah, you were about to say something.
No, I was saying, so one last thought before I have to get out of here. I was saying that on YouTube, they actually have a Green Day song, and so Green Day is When September Ends, but they have the lyrics to Smash Mouth's All Star playing.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's hilarious. By the way, just to tie this up, because I'm about to end the stream because we've been going for an hour. But Billy Joel's live album that he recorded in Moscow is like one of my favorite live albums ever. I love that album so much.
That's
good.
Yeah, the whole concert thing that they did, they did 2 films of that. They did the actual concert, and then they did the backstory behind the concert. And the backstory behind the concert is just so much more worth it. You just the people that he meets and he interacts with, it's tremendous.
Yeah, the live versions on that album, the live versions of Angry Young Man and Goodnight Saigon are no shit 2 of my favorite recordings of a song ever. I love both of those so much. I'm a Billy Joel nerd, everybody. I've never talked about that a whole lot before. I love Billy Joel. Anyway,
hey, that's cool.
Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We're going to wrap this up. Don't forget the charity links in the description of the video that Some Random Geek is always kind enough to collate for us and keep up to help out some of our friends who need a helping hand. And also don't forget patreon.com/Steve Shives to support my channel. This is just something we do once a month with myself and my Patreon patrons who feel like joining me for an hour. And hopefully, if you're watching, you think it looks like fun, you can become a patron if you can afford it and if you think I'm worth it. And maybe you'll be able to join us one of these months. So thanks.
Next month is my birthday.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Early, Isaiah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Best wishes.
Yes.
Asked mine a few days ago, and I forgot to get to that Ask Steve thing. You're Damon.
So thanks everybody for watching, and please, fellow Americans, as Vladimir said, please vote if you haven't voted already. If you haven't early voted,
to vote.
Yeah, if you haven't early voted or mail voted, please vote. It's super important.
Here.
All right. Good for you. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Folks.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.